Hi, so in the previous class we had discussed about what are the good components of an answer. Okay, today we'll be discussing about specific diagrams, how to utilize them in the history optional. Look, it is very important to go for innovations. नहीं तो एक point के बाद कभी भी marks नहीं बढ़ने वाले हैं. If you are scoring 250 marks, 260 marks, you can easily increase 15 to 20 marks by using different set of diagrams. Okay, let us quickly understand this process. फर्स्ट लेट अस जस्ट रिकैप क्या था कंपोनेंट्स. इसको मैं बार बार आपको इसलिए बता रहा हूँ सो दैट इट बिकम्स अ पार्ट ऑफ योर अंडरस्टैंडिंग एंड यू कैन यूटिलाइज इट एवरी टाइम यू राइट एन आंसर. थिंक अबाउट दीज थिंग्स. there should be a good kind of introduction. Good introduction means that you should understand the context. What was the context of that answer? If you know the definition, timeline, etc, etc, everything we have discussed in the previous class. So please ensure that you focus on understanding the process of writing an introduction. If you are not going to focus on this is going to waste a lot of your time. आंसर राइटिंग का पूरा जो एक स्कोप है ना, उसको ये भी समझो कि हमारा टाइम रिड्यूस कैसे होगा. Many of us leave 2-3 questions in the examination hall, फिर सोचते हैं कि अच्छी रैंक भी आ जाए. It's not going to happen if in every paper you are going to do that. All right. So introduction, body, conclusion, structure and segmentation, how to create subheading, etc, etc. That is a very essential part of a good answer. Then use of visuals and innovation. We want to discuss about this now specifically. And historiography. Historiography remains very important. Many videos are going to come. Just try to understand them one after the other. Now let us talk about the visuals. कि भाई visuals कैसे हम utilize कर सकते हैं in writing a good answer. Okay. So we have 4 areas. Okay, we have ancient India, medieval India, modern, and then we have world history. 4 पार्ट है हमारे पास और हर किसी में कुछ ना कुछ इस तरीके से हम डायग्राम्स को यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं. यू कैन जस्ट मेक अ नोट ऑफ दिस. ओके, व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ डायग्राम्स. लाइक इफ आई सी there can be timeline based diagrams. Timeline, it can be used whenever we have a question about some policies of a ruler. Like suppose if a question comes on Akbar, okay, his religious policy. So all of us know there are different phases, or his Rajput policy. We have different phases of Akbar's policies. So in these kinds of questions, you can always go for timeline based approach. If we see a topic like French Revolution has lots of detail. The manner in which it starts in 1789, like 5th of May, the summoning of a state general. Then we have 17th of June, 20th of June, 27th of June. Then we have 9th of July, 14th of July. Eventually 4th of August and 26th and 27th of August, by which time we see a declaration of right. So timeline in 20 marker question, when you do not have enough space, है ना, क्या लिखें उसके अंदर, क्या करना है हमने, तो एक पेज को इफेक्टिवली यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं फॉर क्रिएशन ऑफ टाइमलाइन. सेकंड, pyramid kind of structure. These are also important. Whenever there is segment in the society, whenever there is different kinds of you can say segments, even in the political structure, like first estate, second estate and third estate, you can always use the pyramid types of diagrams. I'll give you examples of everything. We have sufficient points for everyone. Then Venn diagram. Venn diagrams becomes also important whenever you have to talk about how three specific entities are coming together and they are eventually leading to something different. Like suppose whenever we talk about using of triangle, तो triangle के साथ साथ में Venn diagram भी use कर सकते हैं. Like suppose when we talk about peasantry, the zamindar, money lender and as well as British, all these three combine and eventually what did it lead to? It led to the exploitation of the masses. This is how you can use the Venn diagrams also. All right. We'll take examples of them. Flow chart. Flow charts becomes very important whenever you have to say bring to analysis. Like suppose a question comes on drain of wealth. So the nationalist historian talks about a process how the drain of wealth was happening. So you can always go for flow chart. Then schematic diagram, that becomes relatively easy. Like किसी भी question में बना सकते हो, ठीक है. Like if we talk about the policies which were taken by Sher Shah Suri, so we can write about 4-5. This is the easiest part. Graph also becomes very important. Like suppose if a question comes on drain of wealth, the drain of wealth increase with the period of time. Okay, so you can 1890, 1910, 1940s, then you can have certain figures how the drain of wealth was increasing. So this is how graphs also become very important part. These can be micro diagrams. Always think, like suppose if it's a 10 marker question, it's not like that you can give half a page to this. That is not feasible at all. We have to learn this habit of making micro diagrams. Okay, we'll understand that. Map. I would say map is the easiest way in which we can improve our presentation. Map can be used anywhere. You have to show empire, map is going to be a part of it. You have to show any kind of specific important battle, strategic, map is going to be part of it. Unification of Italy, map becomes important. Unification of Germany, again, map becomes very important. You have to mention about, like, suppose the question comes on colonization of Australia, again map becomes very important. So we have to learn how to make map. That is going to be a fundamental part. I was able to increase my marks from 275 all the way up to 325, है ना, लगभग 50 marks increase किए थे. And when this happened in 2018, these things played an important role. I was drawing at least, if there are 14 questions that we have to write in paper 1 and 19 in paper 2, so roughly आप समझ लिए 30 क्वेश्चन के आसपास, 30-32 आपके क्वेश्चन आपने लिखने हैं. Out of that you can easily make them in 20 question, and if in 20 question we can get 0.5 to 1 mark, तो easily we can say कि यार 15 marks के आसपास हम आराम से improve कर सकते हैं. That's why I'm saying ना, from 15 to 20 marks they can be easily increased by using a set of these kinds of diagrams. So please try to understand this. Finally would be certain illustration. Those of us who know how to make structures in a very quick amount of time, like how you can easily make stupa, or you can easily make paintings, etc. तो अगर वो बनाना का हिम्मत है, this is going to be a difficult part, because even I was not having very good drawing, so that's why it was difficult for me to make illustration. But I'll give you examples how illustration can be made, and those of us who can do it, this is going to help you out. All right, now let us try to understand all of them. Examples लेते हैं हर किसी का और समझते हैं. Like, see this diagram. Okay, this is a timeline based. Suppose a question comes on the political question of Mahajanpadas. So whenever question comes on Mahajanpadas, Haryanka dynasty, Shunag, Nanda dynasty, and eventually the coming of the Mauryas. तो हमें ये चीज़ जाननी पड़ेगी कि हाँ कैसे इसको हम यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं. If a question comes on the policies of, suppose, Deccan policy of Mughal rulers, okay, so we should know exactly कि हाँ what was the policy of Akbar, what was the policy of Jahangir, then eventually about Shah Jahan, and finally comes the Aurangzeb. So there we can make these kinds of timeline very easily. Always remember. Okay, so we have given you this part also. You can use this in dynastic transition in a particular region. You can even use in the case of foreign invasions, like if we see Indo-Greek, then came Sakas, and then came the Kushanas. Here also we can talk about this. Like, many times these questions are going to come. Okay, so timeline is going to become very important. Then to show evolution of a thing, for instance, evolution of pottery can be shown. Like black and red ware was a prominent pottery that we have under the Harappas. Then we see ochre color pottery is there, and then eventually if we see Vedic period, painted grey ware is there. Some of the pottery's timeline I cannot say if they were certain like that, but you can always make and write whatever information you have along with this. So timeline is going to become very important. One of the easiest method, जो भी आपको इन्फॉर्मेशन है विच इज़ नॉट डायरेक्टली आस्क्ड इन द क्वेश्चन, उसमें आप इजीली एक छोटा सा टाइमलाइन बना सकते हो. एंड इन 20 मार्कर क्वेश्चन, 15 मार्कर क्वेश्चन, आई थिंक दीज थिंग्स आर गोइंग टू बी वेरी क्रूशियल. प्लीज़ रिमेंबर, ये बनाना सीख लो. एंड दिस कैन बी डन इवन इन एन इम्प्रॉम्प्टू मैनर. नोबडी कैन टीच यू कि हर टॉपिक के ऊपर टाइमलाइन कैसे बनेगी. दैट इज गोइंग टू बी यूजलेस एक्सरसाइज. यू हैव टू लर्न टू मेक देम इम्प्रॉम्प्टू, यूज देम इन द टेस्ट सीरीज. ठीक है, डेली आंसर राइटिंग करते हो उसमें इसको बना के देखो, बिकॉज मैक्सिमम इनोवेशन दैट यू कैन डू इट कैन हैपन इन द डेली आंसर राइटिंग. इन द टेस्ट सीरीज ट्राई टू फॉर्मलाइज. Okay, try to formalize whatever you have learned, and in the final exam you have to be a bit cautious whenever you write answers कि हाँ चलो ठीक है इतना कर सकते हैं, ये नहीं हो पाएगा लास्ट में. This is how it becomes very important. Timeline सबसे आसान तरीका है to fetch marks in UPSC, and whatever I'm teaching you for history optional, it's going to become relevant even for general studies. सोचो ना कि टाइमलाइन को कैसे यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं. If a question comes on India's state of India's political party, so we can easily understand how the political parties have evolved in India. A question comes British democratic politics, about the timeline, so you can easily mention what are the important acts. Again, timeline is going to become important. Constitutional history of India, if a question comes on that also, timeline again. So there is a lot of scope when we come towards answer writing, and along with it using the visuals. Visuals देखो थोड़ा सा monotony को break कर देता है. And whenever this monotony is break, eventually what happens? You're going to get more marks than others. And this is the agenda. Some of us जो हम old school के लोग थे ना, till 2014-15 बहुत कम diagrams वगैरह बनाए जाते थे एग्जाम में. But in 2017 I saw the papers of the toppers, okay, from the test series of various institute. हर कोई सिर्फ डायग्राम ही बना बना के रैंक 1 10 सब लेके आ गए. And that's why we realize कि भाई if you're not going to change along with the time, so those of you are very young, you're giving your first attempt, second attempt, even if you're old, giving your fourth, fifth or sixth attempt, please change yourself. This is the opportunity, okay, to learn, understand and eventually execute in the final examination. चलिए second part देखते हैं. Okay, illustration. Now I would say this is a bit time taking. So when I'm saying you can use the illustrations, you have to be a bit cautious. You have to see if you can do it or you cannot do it. ठीक है, तो ये एक आधे में ही यूज होगा ज़्यादातर. ठीक है, मोस्टली इन पेपर 1 वहाँ पे इलस्ट्रेशन का बहुत स्कोप रहता है हमारे पास में. लाइक इफ ए क्वेश्चन कम्स ऑन आर्किटेक्चर इन एंशिएंट इंडिया, क्वेश्चन कम्स ऑन आर्किटेक्चर इवन इन द मिडिएवल इंडिया, दोनों में आ जाता है. तो इफ ए क्वेश्चन कम्स ऑन स्तूपा, you can easily make a basic level कि what is a torna द्वार, छत्रा, हर्मिका, अंडा, वेदिका, प्रदक्षिणा path. You can easily make it. This is, as I have told you, a bit on the difficult side, but we can use it whenever question comes on architecture, temple, sculpture, pottery. If you have that kind of artistic bent, utilize that. If you have that skill कि अच्छा डायग्राम बना लेते हो तो कोशिश करो ना इसके अंदर ही यूज करने की. Prehistoric paintings you can use here also. ओके कि भाई स्कीम्स बना देते हैं कि हाँ दिस इज हाउ दे वर रिप्रेजेंटेड एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. तो वो अपने आप को हमें देखना सोचना पड़ेगा कैसे उसको पेपर तक लाना है. एंड इट शुड लुक रेलिवेंट ऑल्सो. इट शुड नॉट बी कुछ भी रैंडम बना के बैठ गए और हाँ उस पर लिख दिया, उससे काम नहीं होने वाला है. इसके लिए हमें स्पेसिफिक प्रिपरेशन करनी पड़ेगी. मेक अ नोटबुक दैट इफ दिस टॉपिक इज गोइंग टू कम देन आई एम गोइंग टू मेक दिस इलस्ट्रेशन. ये इम्प्रॉम्प्टू नहीं कर पाओगे. लाइक आई हैव टोल्ड यू, टाइमलाइन कैन बी डन इन एन इम्प्रॉम्प्टू मैनर. एकदम देखा और जल्दी से बना के साइड कर सकते हो. इट्स गोइंग टू मेक सेंस, बट इलस्ट्रेशन आर नॉट गोइंग टू मेक सेंस अनलेस यू प्रैक्टिस देम. तो इफ यू हैव टाइम राइट नाउ फॉर नेक्स्ट ईयर्स मेंस, मेक अ नोटबुक विद इन दिस. सारा एक साथ ही कर सकते हो, टाइमलाइन, डायग्राम एक्सेट्रा सब एक साथ बना सकते हो टॉपिक वाइज. ऑलराइट, तो वो कर लो एक बार. बट दिस इज हाउ यू कैन यूटिलाइज इट इवन इन जनरल स्टडीज व्हेन क्वेश्चन कम्स ऑन आर्ट एंड आर्किटेक्चर. तो वहां पर भी ये चीज यूटिलाइज हो जाएगी. ओके. Third comes pyramid types of diagrams. So pyramid जो diagram होते हैं mostly it provides a kind of understanding. Like in a question comes on French Revolution, what was the structure of the France society? This is one of the point which is long-term factor responsible for the revolution. So yes, first estate clergy, second estate nobility, and third estate was the commoners. And you can even represent how much population was there. Like these two were roughly 2%, and the third estate it was about 98% of the population of France. Question comes in ancient India. All of us know about the Varna system. We start from the first Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudras, and if we see the status in the society, the highest went to the Brahmana, lowest went to the Shudras. And here you can also mention about Purusha Shukta hymn. Okay, sometimes these kinds of diagrams which are relatively easy, they are also going to help you out in pyramids. Pyramids are also very very important in other subjects also. I'm just giving you a connection कि आप जब सीख ही रहे हो तो अच्छे से सीखो. Like suppose if a question comes on environment, transfer of energy, तो वहाँ पर भी आपको पता है कि भाई कैसा होता है उसका pyramid जो होता है. ठीक है ना, it's always upright. So those kinds of things you have to feed in your mind, revise it repeatedly. इसको जीएस में कैसे यूटिलाइज करें, ऑप्शनल में कैसे यूटिलाइज करें. यहाँ पे आपको अलग अलग थीम्स पकड़नी पड़ेगी. लाइक इफ ए क्वेश्चन कम्स ऑन सोसाइटी, यू कैन इजीली सी 2 एग्जांपल्स, French society, Indian society. Okay, if a question comes on administration, there also you can use it. Central administration, then state, then district, all the way up to the village. There also we can use the pyramid types of diagram. As all of us know, maximum population it is always going to reside in the villages, because initially the urban population was not much high. Even if you see in India today, maximum population कहाँ reside करती है? It resides in the rural parts of India. That's why pyramid types of diagram can be very very useful with respect to society as well as administration. Let us look further. Venn diagrams. तो Venn diagrams जो है वो काफ़ी जगह utilize कर सकते हो. Okay. Like here we can have given you example कि what was the triple exploitation of the peasantry. The word troika is often used कि these three came together. Okay, they were exploiting the peasantry individually also, but when they came together, it led to a kind of situation where the peasantry was bleeding. Okay, the maximum revenue that they were getting from the agriculture, it was going to either Britisher landlords or to the money lenders. Nothing was left with them. And this was the situation. This bleeding peasantry eventually became susceptible to the recurring famines that we see during the modern period. That's why इसको ऐसा बनाना सीख लो. कुछ कुछ टॉपिक्स में वेन डायग्राम्स भी अच्छे. देखो डाइवर्सिटी थोड़ी सी क्रिएट करनी पड़ेगी. इफ यू आर मेकिंग टाइमलाइन इन 3 क्वेश्चंस एक के बाद एक, तो वो इम्पैक्ट खत्म हो जाएगा उसका. That's why this diversity of exam is going to be very, very important. So here, like we have shown the exploitation by 3 groups, useful in peasant revolt, tribal revolt, even in drain of wealth. What factors they came in? Like you can, what were the factors? You can write about phase of mercantilism. Okay, then you can write about the phase of industrial capitalism and phase of finance capitalism, and in between what was it? Was drain of wealth. In everything there was drain of wealth. This is how we can create diagrams which can make sense. And when examiner is going to see that under the exam pressure the person has done this, they're naturally going to give you certain extra marks. Points to हमें cover करने ही करने हैं, which are going to be relevant, but along with the points we have to do this also. And if this is going to happen, I'm not saying out of 19 question in paper to draw it in 17, 18. No, that is not going to be feasible. Time is always limited with all of us. But we can try for 10. Specifically in 20 markers. In 20 markers, if we do not have something extra, how can you get more marks than others? पूरा कंपटीशन का गेम है. देखो अगर ये कंपटीशन का गेम नहीं होता, सिर्फ 10th-12th वाला चीज होता है, इवन यूनिवर्सिटी वाला, कोई इशू ही नहीं है. अपना लिखो जितना है, कोई बात नहीं, फर्क नहीं पड़ता. But this is purely about competition. Every mark is going to make a difference in the mains. Either you'll clear mains because of it, or you'll clear the final exam because of this. You'll get a better rank because of this. Eventually cadre also, if you get into IAS, IPS, तो cadre बहुत matter करता है हर किसी के लिए. That's why when you're trying for this exam, do the best that you can. जितनी best practices, learn all the best practices, because this is what matters right now. Okay, let us see the next category, flow charts. Flow charts also becomes important. In 20 marker question, somewhere this is going to become prominent. Okay, like we see deindustrialization led to loss of alternate livelihood for majority of the peasantry. Then it increased their dependence upon agriculture. More vulnerable peasantry happened. Then they eventually went into the debt trap. And finally, it increased poverty since they were not having technology. Again, the whole system, it continued. This is how flowchart can be seen. Okay, we can explain this. These flowcharts are even used by some of the toppers even in the essay paper. वो सोच सकते हो कि मतलब हाँ इसको utilize कैसे करना है. देखो, the best thing that a person can do when they're preparing for civil services is staying ahead of others. And when I say staying ahead of others, it doesn't mean that you cannot learn from others. You can learn from the other people, other toppers. At the same time, make sure that when your time comes, you're able to execute them in the final examination. Many of us, we have various ideas. Okay, since you have multiple ideas, you are not able to execute them in the exam time environment. That's why limit the number of ideas and pick those 4-5 most important ideas. Okay, this is going to work for me. Like I've told you in the beginning itself, illustrations are not that much easy for everyone. It doesn't come naturally. तो उसको छोड़ दो एक को. अब अगर हम 7-8 कैटेगरी बता रहे हैं, तो you can use 4, 3, 2, at least something better than 0, because 0 gives you nothing. That gives you 0 diversity. So this can be used like poverty of peasantry, how it happened, reasons for revolt. Like if a question comes from the revolt of 1857, we can easily create these kind of diagram there also. Okay, so बहुत सारा diversity आपको create करना शुरू करना पड़ेगा. Graphs becomes very, very important whenever question comes on economic history. When I say economic history, it could be about urbanization, it could be about economic growth, it could be about patterns of trade. जब भी हम इकोनॉमिक सर्वे पढ़ते हैं, ऐसे ऐसे बहुत डेटा आता है हमारे पास. जैसे अभी हमने ये बना, द पैटर्न ऑफ अर्बनाइजेशन इन नॉर्दर्न इंडिया. तो Harappan period, yes, it was the first urbanization, but then Vedic period, it was rural society. Then again we see second urbanization. It continued or sometimes till the Gupta period. And if we see the Marxist historiography, then they say the regional kingdom. I mean, and it was a decline of urbanization. And then eventually comes the third urbanization in the Delhi Sultanate. इतना बेसिक सा इन्फॉर्मेशन है, इसको वर्ड्स में अगर करोगे तो बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम लग जाएगा. बट दिस डायग्राम मेक्स सेंस ऑन इट्स ओन. Whenever you create these kinds of graphs, make sure the लेबलिंग पार्ट इज ऑल्सो इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट. यू कैन नॉट जस्ट लीव इंटरनली और छोड़ो कि बाद में अपने आप समझ लेगा. जितना ज़्यादा वेल तरीके से इसको आप डिज़ाइन करोगे उतना ज़्यादा अच्छा उसका इम्पैक्ट आने वाला है. लाइक यू कैन सी हियर इट मेक्स अ लॉट ऑफ सेंस. Okay, like if we see about the economic growth, as such, we do not have data in ancient and medieval India. Okay, but if we talk about modern India, we do have data there. What was the percentage of economic growth overall, or what was the pattern of trade? Like if we see the case of India at the end of 18th century and at the mid of 20th century, here, here in percentage of world trade, roughly 20-25% का हमारा होता है, and it reduce all the way up to 2%. यहाँ ले सकते हो impact of colonial rule. ओके, तो टाइमलाइन एक सब दिखा दिया, परसेंटेज ऑफ शेयर इन द वर्ल्ड ट्रेड एक तरफ कर दिया, एंड दिस इज हाउ इट इज. इम्पैक्ट ऑफ colonialism on India and its growth story. This is how you can use them. It doesn't take a lot to create these kinds of graphs. बहुत आसान है. The only thing is कि we are not open about these ideas. तो इसको प्रैक्टिस करना शुरू करो. Whenever you do daily answer writing at prep career, आप daily answer writing आराम से कर सकते हो. We have created a very good system for that. डेली बेसिस पे आपका क्वेश्चन चेक होंगे, रिव्यू आपको मिल जाएगा, वीडियोस डिस्कशन के मिल जाते हैं, मॉडल आंसर साथ में मिल जाते हैं. बट ये सब चीज़ें करना आपको सीखना पड़ेगा. इफ़ यू आर नॉट डूइंग देम, इवेंचुअली दिस इज गोइंग टू क्रिएट अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम. ओके, चलिए अब अगला देखते हैं. Schematics, I would say the easiest one of the easiest one. Okay, टाइमलाइन के बाद आई थिंक सबसे आसान है. जीएस में हर कोई यही करता रहता है, बस टक 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 4-5 चीजें. बट इसको भी थोड़ा सा कोशिश करो कि यू मेक इट विद इन अ बॉक्स. कि जब हमारे पास ज़्यादा अच्छा कम से कम प्रोडक्ट ना हो तो कम से कम उसकी पैकेजिंग अच्छी कर देनी चाहिए. दिस इज व्हाट दिस इज ऑल अबाउट. कि हाँ ठीक है, सप्तंग राज्य थियोरी इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट है ना, ऑफ कौटिल्य. इवन दिस ईयर यूपीएससी आस्क्ड द क्वेश्चन अबाउट द इंपीरियल आइडियोलॉजी ऑफ मौर्यास. डायरेक्टली यूज इट. King, minister, territory, fort, treasury, army, and allies. These were the 7 important elements of state imperial ideology, Saptanga Rajya theory, and it looks good. Even though it's plain knowledge. अगर आप इसको यूटिलिटी पर्पज से देखोगे तो कोई फायदा नहीं है इसका. ऐसा सबको समझ में आता है, कोई बड़ी चीज़ थोड़ा ना है. बट सी इट फ्रॉम द एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. इफ आई एम evaluating your copies, okay, take the example, somebody has given like this, somebody has given plain, थोड़ा सा biasness आ जाएगा. We are humans, we are not always driven by rational things. Okay, had rationality been the criteria in each and subjectivity कभी आती ही नहीं कॉपी चेकिंग में. और कभी आपको लगता है बहुत अच्छा किया, मार्क्स कम आए. कभी लगता है अच्छा नहीं करके बहुत ज़्यादा मार्क्स आए. Even I was not expecting I will get these many marks, 324 in 2018. I did my level best. I did my level best. You cannot say ever कि नहीं मेरे तो 300 मार्क्स देने ही देने चाहिए थे यूपीएससी ने. You do your level best, be better than others. Okay, at the same time जितना आपने पेपर किया वो बेस्ट टू बेस्ट आपका होना चाहिए. चाहे उसमें हिस्टोग्राफी हो, इंट्रोडक्शन, कंक्लूजन, बॉडी स्ट्रक्चर, यूज ऑफ स्कीमेटिक्स, एवरीथिंग इज डिपेंड्स अपॉन यू. दिस इज हाउ आई वुड से कि भाई आपको डाइवर्सिटी लेके आनी पड़ेगी. इन दिस ये कब यूज करते हैं? व्हेन देयर इज लैक ऑफ टाइम. इट कैन बी यूज्ड टू रिप्रेजेंट ऑलमोस्ट एनी टॉपिक. ये तो सबसे आसान तरीका है. जैसे हमने टाइमलाइन का बोला, टाइमलाइन में फिर भी आपका एक कम से कम एक फेजेस वाइज बनना चाहिए. यहाँ तो फेजेस का भी जरूरत नहीं है, यहाँ तो जो मन में आए जिसमें भी लिख सकते हो. ठीक है, लाइक सपोज इफ यू टॉकिंग अबाउट द रॉक एडिक्ट्स, तो मेजर रॉक एडिक्ट, माइनर रॉक एडिक्ट, पिलर एडिक्ट एक्सेट्रा, केव इंस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ अशोका, आराम से दिखा सकते हो. इफ ए क्वेश्चन कम्स ऑन धम्मा, धम्मा पे आया उसके ऊपर बना सकते हो. दिस इज द इजिएस्ट थिंग एंड आई थिंक मैक्सिमम स्टूडेंट यूज इट इन द जनरल स्टडीज ऑल्सो. बट आई वुड से इसको 1-2 में यूज करो. लाइक इफ यू आर मेकिंग इन 10 क्वेश्चन, ठीक है, 10 क्वेश्चन में बना रहे हो 20 में से, तो इसको हम सिर्फ 2 में यूज करेंगे. 20%, नॉट मोर देन दैट. द रेस्ट रिमेनिंग 80% वी कैन यूज 1-1. कहीं चार्ट बना दिया, कहीं पे हमने इलस्ट्रेशन अगर बना सकते हैं तो आई थिंक वो भी बहुत अच्छा तरीका है. कहीं ग्राफ बन गया हमारा. तो दिस इज हाउ वी कैन इम्प्रूव आर मार्क्स इन द हिस्ट्री ऑप्शनल. एंड टॉपिक वाइज यू हैव टू डू ब्रेन स्टॉर्मिंग. इफ यू आर नॉट डूइंग दैट ब्रेन स्टॉर्मिंग, इफ यू डू नॉट नो हाउ टू रिप्रेजेंट दैट डेटा, आप ये मत सोचिए आपको कोई बुक से सब कुछ ये सिखा देगा. इट्स नेक्स्ट टू इम्पॉसिबल. एवरीबडी हैज टू लर्न फ्यू थिंग्स. और इम्प्रॉम्प्टू होती हैं ये चीज़ें. जैसे जिसको करना आ गया वो जल्दी जल्दी कर देता है. लाइक वन ऑफ माई फ्रेंड in 2016 we all got selected, so we were sitting in the academy, तो हम बात कर रहे थे क्वेश्चन कि यार इस पे क्या किया, मतलब what was the role of women, okay, in India's national movement. So he said I just made a graph. यहाँ non cooperation, civil disobedience, and 1942 quit India movement. This is how the role of women kept on increasing with the period of time. और हमने भी देखा हाँ यार ठीक है यार मतलब it makes sense. ओके एक ये लिखेगा बैठ के अलग से कि द पार्टिसिपेशन इंक्रीज दे इंडल्ज इन वेरियस एक्टिविटीज एक्सेट्रा सो दैट द प्रेशर कैन बी इंक्रीज ऑन द ब्रिटिश राज, बट ये एक अलग ही तरीके से उसको रिप्रेजेंट किया जा रहा है एंड सच थिंग्स आर ऑलवेज गोइंग टू गेट अप्रिशिएटेड. ओके सो प्लीज मेक श्योर दैट यू ओपन योर आइज. These videos that I'm coming up with, है ना, all of you are part of this Hawks course also. कोशिश करो यार कम से कम इस चीज़ को इम्प्लीमेंट करने की, डेली लेवल पे थोड़ा थोड़ा करके देखो. मैं एक कॉपी बना लोगे ना जिसमें 100-150 डायग्राम होंगे पूरे ऑप्शनल के लिए, आपका काम फिनिश है. यू डोंट हैव टू डू एनीथिंग बियॉन्ड दैट एंड दैट इज गोइंग टू हेल्प यू. फिर उसको टेस्ट सीरीज में करके देखो विद इन टाइम पीरियड, within a time limit of 3 hours. If you're able to execute them in some specific 10 questions that you're attempting out of 20, then you're done, you're good to go. Okay, map is something which you can draw anywhere. Map का देखो बहुत बड़ा significance है. Just like schematics, map can be used anywhere. Like this year UPSC asked a question on Neolithic period. So when question comes on Neolithic period, you can always make diagrams along with it, show कि which were the most important site. Okay, so you can just show कि which are the most important site in different parts of India. तो आराम से बुरज़ाहम, गुफरल, मेहरगढ़ दिखा सकते हो, ठीक है. नॉर्थ ईस्ट में दाव जाली हार्डिंग दिखा सकते हो. So this is how you can ensure चौपानी मांडो, कोल्डी हवा, different regions where you can outline also that these are the 5 or 4 major regions that we have with respect to the Neolithic period in India. And if you have found some specific thing, some specific tool which is revolutionary in nature, like Koldi Hawa, we see the evidence of cultivation of rice. At Mehergarh, cultivation of cotton. बन गया आपका मैप. और क्या करना है आपको इसके अंदर? Okay, if a question comes like similar kind of question can come on the spread of civil disobedience movement. So you can always show in which part what was happening. Northwest frontier, you can always write about Khan Abdul Bahadur Khan, red shirt movement was started by him. Go towards northeast, like the Cunningham Circular, that became very famous. You can say the movement against it. Everywhere, somewhere there was salt, Darshana salt works. ठीक है, तो you have to understand कहाँ पे flag march चल रहा है, तो वो आप easily बता सकते हो if you have this hold, but you have to learn to make map in 20 seconds. At max 30 ले लो, उससे ज़्यादा नहीं. ये पूरा schematics 1 मिनट के अंदर खत्म हो जाना चाहिए with well labeling. If this is not happening, then ये आपको फिर time waste कराना शुरू कर देगा. And you have to do this practice. मैं ये नहीं कहता कि बिल्कुल परफेक्ट बनना है, बट एटलीस्ट एक बेसिक लेवल तक लगना चाहिए कि हाँ चलो ठीक है कि हाँ ये चल जाएगा. दिस इज हाउ इट कैन वर्क. Alright, this is something which is very important. If you wish to use map, learn to draw it first, and once you learn to draw, learn to label it also. तो कई बार क्या होता है ना, बना के बस 2 पॉइंट लिख के छोड़ देते हैं, कोई मतलब नहीं उसका, मतलब you don't even care about it. That's why it becomes very important to appreciate your own work कि हाँ मैंने बनाया, मैं इसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लेता हूँ. ये तो कहते हैं मैंने बना दिया, बाकी आप देखो, हमारे पास अब टाइम नहीं है इस चीज़ के लिए. This is again a very powerful tool. Map can be used very extensively in GS paper 1, 2, 3. It becomes very important in our optional also, both in paper 1 as well as paper 2. In paper 2 you have to even go towards world. Like suppose if a question comes on Africa, तो अफ्रीका का मैप बनाना सीखना पड़ेगा आपको, ठीक है. और उसको डिफरेंट पार्ट्स में जो कि अगर मेरे को हाफ पेज में बनाना है तो हाउ आई डू इट, अगर 1/4 में बनाना है तो किस तरीके से बनाना है, तो वो थोड़ा सा आपको सीखना पड़ेगा, ठीक है. हाँ ठीक है, चल जाएगा अफ्रीका, इतना भी बना दे बहुत है. फिर दिखा सकते हो ना कहाँ कहाँ प्रॉब्लम्स चल रही हैं इन अफ्रीका, लाइक सहारा डेजर्ट है, ठीक है. तो यहाँ पे मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द टाइम व्हाट हैपेंस, ओके, वी सी द spread of the desert which affect the food security. Then which area like Nigeria में Boko Haram, terrorism becomes a problem, comes towards Somalia, piracy etc. becomes a problem. So if question comes on the factors affecting the development of Africa, this was asked in 20 marker in history option in 2018. I made this map. मुझे पता है कि बहुत अच्छा नहीं है, but at least एक level पे कर तो पा रहा हूँ ना. When you're showing all these factors within the map itself, it shows your complete understanding. Nothing was left. Now you know, okay, yeah, in this area it was affected by Arab Spring. Alright, so this is what is important, showing your understanding and connecting with the theme of the answer. So mapping becomes a very important part. Okay, even when you're showing the extent of the empires, it becomes very very important. उसको आराम से आप यूटिलाइज कर सकते हो. इवन इन मॉडर्न इंडिया इफ यू हैव टू शो सर्टेन बैटल कि हाँ ठीक है, व्हाट वाज दैट Carnatic area, you can easily show what was the fight all about. If any specific treaty you're showing this part of was annexed by the British, or you're showing about the Bengal, so you can easily mention but these are the area which were controlled by the British after the Battle of Plassey and then eventually after the Buxar. This is how mapping becomes very very important. वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री में 5-6 मैप आपको बनाना सीखना है. वन फॉर द लैटिन अमेरिका, यूएसए के लिए बनाना सीख सकते हो फॉर अमेरिकन, ठीक है ना. ब्रिटिश के लिए बनाना सीख सकते हो डेमोक्रेटिक पॉलिटिक्स के लिए. देन यू कैन वन फॉर फ्रांस, फ्रांस रिमेन्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. इटली, जर्मनी, एंड देन फिर बस कॉन्टिनेंट वाइज अफ्रीका, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, खत्म. इतना हमारे लिए बहुत है. दैट इज मोर देन इनफ. From last 2-3 years, UPSC asking question from Southeast Asia. So if you wish to make some map for Indonesia and Vietnam, इन दो के लिए कर सकते हो तो और आपको help कर देगा in the exam environment. So please try your level best. This is the first part that I wanted to give you overview about कि भाई इसको जरूर काम करना शुरू करो. Along with when we will discuss about other aspects of answer writing, this is one aspect of answer writing which is always under addressed and I want all of you to become aware about this. इसको अच्छे से करो ताकि अगर 10 नंबर भी हमारे इससे इंक्रीज होते हैं, 5 नंबर भी इंक्रीज होते हैं ना, तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है, एटलीस्ट बढ़ रहे हैं ना, घट तो नहीं रहे हमारे. बस वी हैव टू बिकम एफिशिएंट. यू गोइंग टू शेयर दिस पीपीटी, आप सब लोगों के साथ में पीपीटी शेयर हो जाएगी सो दैट यू कैन यूटिलाइज इट. कैसे इसको यूटिलाइज करना है, एटलीस्ट एग्जाम्पल आपके सामने ही आ जाएंगे 8-10. ठीक है, this is what is important. Now all of this is part of this 7-day master class. I also want, like even I was associated with history optional for a long time before I went into this new venture of mine. तो रहता है दिमाग में कि यार हेल्प करो लोगों की. So make sure that you can understand about the map strategy. बहुत अच्छे से मैंने समझा है क्या challenges है, कैसे क्या करना है. We have shared the keywords also. उनको फिर से हमने redefine किया पूरी अच्छी अच्छी नई नई categories में. उसको भी समझो, maximum marks लेके आओ मैप में. Then get ready for paper 1 paper 2. पेपर 1 का भी पार्ट शूट हो गया है, ठीक है, वो भी आपको मिल जाएगा. देन मैं अभी हमने आप बात किया डायग्राम्स के बारे में. सो ऑल दोज थिंग्स आर गोइंग टू बिकम पार्ट ऑफ दिस स्ट्रेटजी क्लासेस दैट आई एम टेकिंग. एंशिएंट, मिडिएवल, मॉडर्न वर्ल्ड, एक्सेस रजिस्टर कर लो गूगल फॉर्म में, ठीक है, आपको कॉल्स वगैरह आएंगे एंड दे आर गोइंग टू हेल्प यू आउट विद एनी काइंड ऑफ प्रॉब्लम दैट यू हैव इन द हिस्ट्री ऑप्शनल. जस्ट मेक श्योर दैट उसको अच्छे से कर पाओ. एंड देखो रिजल्ट प्रोड्यूस करना कोई बड़ा चीज़ नहीं है. I'm never going to say कि I am 100% responsible for each and every one of them success. No, that is never going to happen. But all of them, they were under my tutelage, one or the other point of time. They learned and eventually they grown out. They were able to execute these ideas in the final exam. And देखो rank 1 भी आए हैं, कितने सारे लोग top 100 के अंदर आ गए हैं. So you can also do it. You have to just think. Marks देखो, अच्छे अच्छे marks आए हैं हर किसी के. And this is what you need to understand. But Prep Career, we have all the courses which can address each and everything with respect to your foundation courses, Sampurna Kranti test series, answer writing, mapping, and finally even this Hawks program, which helps us in understanding about the nuances of answer writing. ठीक है, so all the very best. Take care. कोई भी अगर डाउट वगैरह हो, even if you're enrolled or unenrolled, इन पे आप सीधा मैसेज करके पूछ सकते हो कि ये दिक्कत मुझे आ रही है, आपकी वो जल्दी से जल्दी रिजॉल्व कर दी जाएगी. ठीक है, so all the very best and keep learning. काफ़ी सारे वीडियोस आने वाले हैं इसी के रिगार्डिंग, उसको एक एक करके हम शुरू करते हैं. ऑलराइट, चलिए, थैंक यू सो मच.